So at this time, let's call to order the April 14th, 2022 meeting of the Newburgh Planning Commission and get a roll call for who's present, please.
I've got the Sharon Capri,
Yes, here.
Jeffrey Musil,
Present.
Jason Dale,
Here.
Connor Hansen, I see Connor on the screen. Aiden Gray,
Present.
Present.
and then Charles Abon and Chris Wright are absent tonight.
Well, thank
Excused.
you. Okay, so like to offer a brief time for public comments for anything not on the agenda, if there's anyone in the waiting room.
I have a Luke Widows in the mailing room or in the waiting room, but I think he is he on which matter is he on, Doug?
I do not know. You'd have to ask me.
Okay. Mr. Widows, you're able to speak if you like to.
I'm not on any matter. I'm just here to listen.
Okay.
Is there no one else?
Nobody else.
Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the consent calendar and just the minutes from the last meeting. And if someone would like to offer a motion to approve.
I approve.
I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor, say aye.
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 So that passes. So then let's move on
Aye.
here. And let me get back to where my agenda was here momentarily. Okay. Second, trying to get the right electronic devices to play with me here. Okay. There it is. Get the right agenda. So this time I'd like to call to order a quasi-judicial public hearing to discuss a conditional use permit approval to use a single family dwelling as a vacation rental home. And it's CUP 22-003. And I'd like to call for any abstentions, any biases, any ex parte contact or objections to jurisdiction from anyone. Hearing none, can we go on to the legal announcement?
Is that me?
That is you.
All right. I have one question before I start. Doug, you said the ORS had a new number. It used to be 197.763. That changed, and I wrote it down on a piece of paper, but I forgot to mark it on the actual paper.
Looks like Doug doesn't have his. You'll have to ask him that again. He was on the phone.
Oh,
Put his
Sorry.
he has to put his earbud in again. Go ahead, Aiden.
sorry. Doug, you said ORS 197.763 changed to a different number, which I wrote down, but I didn't
So-
transfer it to my official document.
Okay, it's ORS 197-797.
All right, thank you. All right. ORS 197.797 requires certain statements to be made at the commencement of a public hearing. The applicable city and state zoning criteria must be listed. This means that we must advise you of the standards that must be satisfied by the applicant prior to our approval of an application. The planning staff will list the applicable criteria during his or her presentation of the staff report. Persons wishing to participate in this hearing must direct their testimony or the evidence toward the criteria stated by the planner or other specific city or state criteria which you believe apply. You must tell us why the testimony or evidence relates to the criteria. Any issue which might be raised in an appeal of this case to the Land Use Board of Appeals must be raised in person or by letter at the local level prior to the city approving or denying the application. The law states that the issue must be raised in enough detail to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond. This part of the law is also known as the raise it or waive it requirement. If you do not bring it up now, you cannot bring it up at the Land Use Board of Appeals. Failure of an applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval in enough detail to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue precludes an action in damages in circuit court. Prior to the conclusion of the initial evidentiary hearing of an application, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional evidence or testimony regarding the application. The Planning Commission will grant such a request through a continuation or extension of the record.
Well, I thank you. So at this time, let's move over to staff report. Doug?
I will turn this over to Sam. So he's working on this particular case. So Sam is our new assistant planner. He's been here a little over a month. So we're getting him integrated in. So he'll walk through the PowerPoint presentation for you.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Here you go, Sam.
Okay, good. So the case before you this evening is a vacation rental request at 2035 North Heritage Way. And I will begin by entering the entire staff report into the record. Next slide, please. So the background for this, Todd and Melissa Nilsson have submitted an application to the city of Newburgh. This is for a conditional use approval for a vacation rental in a 3-bedroom single-family home. And again, its location is 2035 North Heritage Way. We have identified the map and tax lot number for this parcel. It is in the R2 zone, which is medium density. And the applicable criteria for this case is 15-22-060, which is the conditional use criteria through a type 3 process, and 15-445-300 through 350, which is our vacation rental home standards. Next slide, please. This is a map identifying the location of the property. It's located North of Heritage Way, north of Lynn Drive, and it's identified by the red outline. Next slide, please. This is a site view of the home. Next slide, please. The criteria, 15-225-060. The first is dealing with location, size, design, and operating characteristics. It is located in an area with existing single-family homes. It's north of downtown and near Jackworth Park. The use is similar to a residential use in its design and operating characteristics. There are 2 off-street parking spaces, and those parking spaces take their access from North Heritage Way. Next slide, please. So subsection B is dealing with location, design, and site planning, and then C is whether it will be consistent with the code. A quick staff summary, which is further detailed in your staff report. The location is attractive for a vacation rental, given its proximity to downtown and regional attractions such as wineries and George Fox University. As I noted before, there are 2 off-street parking spaces with their access from North Heritage Way, and it's compatible with other residential uses in the area, which are both owned and rented. Next slide, please. These are the vacation rental standards themselves. It has to be in a single-family dwelling, which it is, located at 2035 North Heritage Way. They would need to register with the city for transient lodging tax. That means for the rental of the units, there's a 9% tax for its use as a vacation rental, and that's paid based on what gets charged on a nightly basis. We have to have 2 off-street parking spaces, and there are 2, as I have previously mentioned. It's a 3-bedroom home, so the maximum occupancy for the vacation rental is 6. They cannot have or include as part of the vacation rental the use of RVs, tents, or any temporary shelters. There's a requirement that the applicant will post near the front door the contact information for the police department, what the vacation rental standards are, what the maximum occupancy is, what day the garbage pickup will occur, which is on a Monday. Next slide, please. So staff's recommendation is that the Planning Commission adopt Order 2022-05, and that will conclude staff's presentation.
Well, thank you, Sam. Back to the chair here, and at this time, I'd like to offer public testimony. Please limit comments to 5 minutes unless you are the applicant or the principal opponent. And let's start with the applicant or anyone supporting. Is the applicant in the room?
I don't see them unless it's Madison Nelson. No.
Try
No?
the Madison
Okay.
Nelson one.
There you
Hello,
go.
Madison Nelson is, Todd Nelson. I'm here.
Okay.
Okay, welcome to the meeting. Go ahead and speak.
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with the process. What do I need to speak to?
Oh, you're just speaking to the planning commission and you're just laying out your case for why you're seeking approval.
We purchased the property as our daughter goes to George Fox to use as a second home, but also try to use as a vacation rental when we're not able to use the property.
Okay, any commissioners have questions? So it sounds like you're familiar with the requirements the city laid out and everything.
Yes,
Was it-
we've had some advice from locals and we feel like we know the requirements.
Okay. Are there any opponents in the room to the proposal?
Don't see that we have any additional proponents or opponents, Mr. Chair.
Okay. If we have no one else in the room, were there any commissioners that wanted to ask a question to the applicant? Hearing none, no, go ahead and close the public testimony portion of the hearing then and ask for final comments from staff and the recommendation.
So Sam, you're up on that.
Okay. Yeah, we believe that the use is consistent with, surrounding single family residences. And, it's in line with the code. So staff recommends approval for order 2022-05.
Well, thank you, Sam. Okay, we'll open up for any deliberation from Planning Commission members. Is there anyone that would like to offer any statement? Okay, well, hearing none, we'll go ahead and ask for a motion. Hello?
Don't everybody speak at once.
I'm sorry.
If someone would like to offer a motion,
I'm sorry. I was on mute. I would like to propose or move that we adopt Planning Commission Order 2022-05.
thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can we please get a roll call vote?
Commissioner Capri,
Yes.
Commissioner Musil,
Yes.
Commissioner Dale,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gray,
Yes.
And with that, the motion passes. Thank you and congratulations. And Doug, did we have everyone in the room we needed for the next one?
I have emailed Mr. Smith. I've called Mr. Smith. He's not here, so we can proceed forward. So on this particular one, Mr. Chair, is a reminder that this hearing was continued from your March meeting. So there is no need to read the legal language.
Oh, okay. So at this time, then let's reconclude our meeting from March on the quasi judicial proposal to, let me find it again. Yes, we're discussing an appeal of MISC 221-001 for a modification of street right-of-way and improvements for the width of North Elliott Road on the North Elliott Road Improvement Project. So, so we don't need to ask for any ex parte or?
No, you've already opened the hearing. You took testimony, you left the record open. So
let's move on right to staff report then.
Okay. So thank you. So Doug Rux, Community Development Director. So we opened this hearing in March at your meeting. You had a PowerPoint presentation. I did not pull up that PowerPoint again. You've already seen it once before. At that meeting, you took testimony on the proposal. Based upon I will say the general comments is that you asked staff to see if we could go back and resolve the issue in regards to Mr. DeHaant's property and potential right-of-way acquisition. So just as some generic background is that this was a request by the city's engineering division to adjust the right-of-way width for 4 properties that are on the Elliott Road between Highway 99 and the high school. All of the properties have been acquired by the engineering division, except for Mr. DeHaant's property, which was under discussions and negotiations. So based upon the design and feedback that the engineering division had received on this particular capital improvement project, it was identified to narrow the right-of-way width up at several locations. And so they filed an application for a modification. It was not a variance. It was a modification to the right-of-way width standards. So following the Planning Commission's last opening of this hearing, we've continued to have conversations with Mr. DeHaant and his attorney, Mr. Smith. And there have been verbal understandings that have been reached I have been briefed between the city manager and Mr. DeHaant that the road project would not include improvements along Mr. DeHaant's property. So in your packet, there were some additional graphics that were provided. In my paper copy, it's on page 84, but that shows that there would be no right-of-way improvements along the Mr. DeHaant's property. So what is represented in that graphic is that the sidewalk and improvements would come up to the south property line of Mr. DeHaant's property. The engineering division and their consultants have then identified a crosswalk that would cross over to the east side of Elliott Road to the sidewalk improvements that are provided there. And then on the north side of Mr. DeHaant's property, there would be another sidewalk, pedestrian crossing Elliott Road from the east back to the west. So in that particular design concept, there would be no widening of the right-of-way along Mr. DeHaant's property. So as I mentioned, the city manager and Mr. DeHaan have had some conversations. They've come to some verbal understandings, but nothing has been formalized in writing yet. My briefing with the city manager is that we were waiting for some bullet point concepts from Mr. DeHaan so that the city could prepare an agreement between the city and Mr. DeHaan that would memorialize what this graphic that's in your packet has identified. In addition, I've modified the staff report to provide use with some additional options. And so the original staff recommendation back in March was to adopt the resolution which supports the planning director's determination on that modification request. I've also included that the planning commission could choose to not approve the community development director's recommendation, and you could basically deny. I guess the option would be you could approve the way staff recommended, or you could not approve, which would require staff to come back with a resolution based upon the findings that you would come up with this evening. A third option has, of course, materialized since the staff report went out, and that could be that the planning commission could continue this hearing once again to your May meeting, May 12th meeting, and that would allow some additional time for staff to continue to talk with Mr. DeHaan and enter into a formal agreement, whereby if that was done, Mr. DeHaan and his legal counsel could withdraw the appeal on the miscellaneous application that's before you. So that's kind of where we're at this particular juncture in time. So I will stop there and see if there's any questions.
Well, thank you, Doug. Yeah, it seemed like, and my apologies, I wasn't in voice on the last meeting, but it seemed like it was kind of beating out around the bush, and I was trying to find the standing for what was being continued, but it sounds like the third option might be the best thing we have altogether if they're willing to come to an agreement that would in effect kill the appeal. And so my understanding is if we select that option, they agree, then the appeal is dropped. Is that correct, Doug?
That's a possibility. Again, have nothing actually in writing at this particular point in time. So that's why I laid out the three options. So the two options that were laid out in your staff report that's before you, but then we've, over the course of the last week, we've identified the third potential option. I should also note that Mr. Chu, who is the project manager for the engineering division on this project, did extend the 120-day rule and provided an additional 60 days. If this case was to be continued once again, community development staff would have to go back to the applicant again and see if they would be willing to extend the timeline by an additional 30 days. I think at the last meeting, there was kind of a chuckle amongst the planning commission members that, well, the city would take themselves to district court on a writ of mandamus. And my opinion, only my opinion, is probably not likely that that would occur. But again, those are your three options you have before you: concur with staff's recommendation, or essentially say, no, staff's recommendation is incorrect, bring us back one that is the opposite, and or continue the hearing until your May 12th meeting.
Okay, that was, oh, I think so that would have been my next question about the whether there were time constraints on there, anything that would, make it a problem if we were to extend. And if it were just 1 and 2, I would be for accepting the recommendation and passing it this evening. But if it's basically, it would be less of a potential flashpoint with the city if it were to just go to an acceptance and be dismissed. That's pretty interesting too. But I'm sorry, now go ahead with the other comments.
Mr. Chair, I was just curious if we have opened the public record for comments again. and we have to hear from the applicant again like before, or we're just deliberating amongst ourselves and staff?
So at this juncture, Commissioner, is that the record was left open, the testimony was left open at the last hearing.
So are we going to hear from applicants again?
As I indicated earlier, we reached out to the applicant via email, and I called his cell phone as well this evening with the technical difficulties we've had and let him know to log back in. He has not logged back into this particular meeting.
Very well. If you don't mind, I'll just offer my opinion here since we're kind of in limbo, I guess, or deliberating. It's my opinion that we should continue this tonight in the option 3 that Doug laid out, but also make clear to Mr. DeHaan and his representation that should they not be able to work things out within this further continuance, that we will select option 1 and approve it without doing all that. So that, in my opinion, should we decide to go along that route, that gives them a little bit of an incentive to work things out with the city.
Yeah,
I agree.
I agree.
yeah, I was just gonna offer and ask Doug if there was some way that, yeah, that's, it's either do this or quit beating around the bush. If there's some way that could be presented that, that if this is accepted, fine, but if not, expect for the vote to be in the affirmative.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, and we have Mr. Chu with us this evening, who's the applicant on this particular case. And so you may want to ask him if he might be willing to extend additional time to the 120 days.
Mr. Chu, are you with us? Are you on?
Hi, everyone. This is Paul. I'm with the CEO of Newburgh Public Works Engineering, and I'm the project manager for the area road, working with the consultant. We have been in touch with a lot of property owners, including Mr. DeHaan, and trying to resolve some of the challenges that we have. One of them is the need for the right-of-way. After extensive conversation at different levels, at the city manager's level and also council, it's my understanding that, as Doug has mentioned, that we are not going forth with getting any acquisition from Mr. DeHaan, and we are able to come up with design, as Doug has mentioned, to provide crosswalk for pedestrian across North Area Road and back again, without touching or improving anything on Mr. DeHaan's property, and still make the project functional in the sense, because we look at the geometry and at least for the time being is sort of what I would call it compromised. And then with that in mind, we have moved ahead with some redesign so that we don't have to have any sidewalk on Mr. DeHaan's frontage, and also able to accommodate other improvements and things like that at the underground of the power line, not underneath his property, but away from it. We're able to accommodate it. Having said that, this project is currently moving ahead with the redesign in such a way that it will be complete and be able to move forward for the intent to have it advertised for construction for this summer. And so it would be very awkward, let me put it this way using that word, to have this issue being on, is not closing, I guess, in a sense, while the project is moving ahead, soliciting construction bids. And that's what I just want to mention that to you. Again, it's awkward in that sense. I think we have been in the spirit of not touching his property. I think that has been apparently his intent, that he wasn't very happy if we are going to acquire something out of his property and we are able to avoid it, at least for this project. So, and still able to get the whole project functionally working for the intent of it, to have pedestrian, bicyclists, and also motorized vehicle on it. So this is what it is at this point in time, with just a little bit awkward kind of design around it. So we are able to achieve that. So it would be kind of nice if this application, this process could come to a conclusion in a very understandable manner. And that's what I would like to mention to everyone here on the Planning Commission. I appreciate your understanding. And then that's what I'm saying at this point in time. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. So I'm listening.
Yeah, I've got a two-parter for you. And my first part would be, would the changes impact, in your opinion, would the changes, if we were to agree to what he wants, impact public safety at all?
When you say changes, can you elaborate? What do you mean by changes? Can you define a little bit in context?
That if the agreement was made not to touch the property at all, would that involve design that would impact public safety at all, in your opinion?
We look at it, there is sufficient width. The only awkwardness is for the pedestrian that they have to cross the street twice if they are staying on the west side of Elliott Road. But we are able to include, or I should say, add one more crosswalk with the rapid flashing. So that means that if somebody wants to cross the road, they have to push the button and then this rapid flashing lights comes on. Motorists would certainly have to see it unless a person is not a driver or is visually challenged. That may be a different story. But for any legitimate drivers and road users, they should be able to see that. And so it's actually proven a very functional and very practical, but somewhat expensive for us to put it in there. But nevertheless, I think there's something that we're more than happy to do and provide so that we can have safety not compromised for the project.
Okay, and then that you kind of hit on the second part of my question is, do you have any
Yes,
estimate on what this might cost to make this accommodation?
I don't have the numbers with me, but it's something I think, given the fact that this road has a lot of discussion on safety. So in that sense, by providing this crosswalk with the rapid flashing, I think is certainly going to enhance safety for sure. And personally, I think safety cannot be limited by the cost of improvements. And they are not something that would be like, overly expensive and unaffordable. But given the situation here, we have to look at the whole picture, and I think it's something that we are able to accommodate. So I guess I did not answer your question directly, but in a sense.
Yeah, I guess just what I'm getting at is, if, say, the city wasn't to make this accommodation versus, there would still be the strong safety component versus the city making this accommodation. Is it going to cost the city a lot more money to make the accommodation?
Well, actually, looking at the entire project for any kind of how should I say? Because time, in a sense, means money. If this project is delay further and that sort of thing is also, it means time is kind of being is going without something construction happening. So that is sort of a value in itself. It's a little bit hard to quantify, but for the project, I think it's going to help for sure.
Okay, well, thank you.
You're very welcome, Jeff.
Any other
Commissioner
questions?
Jeff.
I have a question, Capri,
Yes, please.
Commissioner Capri.
Hi.
Hi, if we extended, could you not continue with your plans and just, if they agreed to it, could you not just include it with the right-of-way, extended right-of-way? Or if there still is not a solution, could you just then go to the crosswalks? It seems to me the absolute best idea would be to try to get it done as it should be. The crosswalks, double crosswalks would be a second choice to me, not nearly as efficient or effective as being able to do the right of way. So, I mean, that's all I'm asking is if you couldn't go ahead and go through with your plans and just allow to come back in and include this in it next month.
Respectfully, what I would like to say is that the staff, including myself and our consultant, we have been working very hard with the property owner and sharing with them the information that there is a need for that. And we have actually spent quite a long time here, not just a matter of weeks or months, but more than a year, actually more than that. I don't have the numbers with me, but in the planning document that you have, there's actually, I think there's one page showing when they will start the stuff. There are some key deadlines or dates in there. I think that gives you some information that we have been trying our best to come up with some agreement to acquire the additional right-of-way, but we have not been successful. Has been, how should I say, extremely difficult that way. And so it's not that we haven't tried it and that sort of thing. We have done as much as and beyond and trying of that sort. And so this crosswalk here, and also the fact that we're not going to be touching Mr. DeHaan's property, I think that would be an option. And certainly we're not doing it by sacrificing something else, because we look at what we can do and we're still able to have a functional design for this area road project. So not that we haven't tried, but we have given a lot of time to that. And I'm frankly not too sure, even more time, if there would be a resolve or willingness for Mr. DeHaan to agree to some sort of acquisition being provided to the city. Because on the other hand, is that the construction season, we already sort of missed a portion of it for this summer. And so this project will have to be finished by September of next year, because there is a lot of work that needs to be done for construction.
No, thank you. And I just have one more thing,
welcome.
like after hearing your
Yes.
testimony there and everything, that I kind of share Commissioner Capri's concern that about the double sidewalk. And then I was thinking as well that, you know, potentially it's kind of a runaround. It's just been taking some extra time. And then I'd like commissioners to also consider precedent that if we were to allow this, we might end up with zigzagging sidewalk
Yeah,
situation
yeah.
on the road. So, yeah, I you know, at the start I was thinking about the extension, but at this point I'm leaning towards approving as staff recommends here. Any other
Yeah,
commission?
I mean, I think if, yeah, sorry. Commissioner Hanson. Yeah, I think the double crosswalk is a bit ridiculous as a solution, in my opinion. It impacts safety as long as drivers are, you know, it's just kind of silly in my opinion. And I don't think that a continuance of 30 days would necessarily change anything. I think we'd be back here again. That's in my opinion, because this has been going on for over a year at this point. But yeah, so that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Any other
Commissioner,
commissioners want to add?
Commissioner Gray.
Go ahead.
I'm normally one for diplomacy, but this has been going on for, according to the record, quite some time. And I don't think that an extra 30 days is going to come up with a solution at this point.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else with comments or concerns or?
Question for Doug.
Mhm.
Is he there?
Yes, I am here.
Should we decide to go with option 1 tonight, which I think I'm hearing consensus on, that means that the appeal challenge stays there, and our recommendation tonight is go to before City Council, correct?
So if the planning commission chooses to go with the staff recommendation, which on your resolution reads an order approving the January 14th, 2022 Community Development Director decision on miscellaneous 221-0002. If you were to do that, is that Mr. DeHunt and his legal representation will get notified of your decision, and they would have the ability to appeal that decision to the city council.
Okay, so it doesn't go to City Council directly from here unless they appeal.
That is correct.
Okay. Okay, and should they appeal, what's the timeline on that process?
So if the commission made a decision this evening to go with staff's recommendation, we would notify the applicant. There's 14 days for an appeal period from the date that the commission makes a decision. After that, then we'd have to get it calendared on to the city council. And so that might, and there's legal notice that we have to do 10 days prior to that hearing. So it's likely it would end up in front of the city council on their June 2nd meeting.
Okay. And it's likely that should we continue here, that it will be done by there. So we're basically in the same time frame, because we go to next month's meeting and then June's meeting to, or I'm sorry, next month's meeting to approve it, and then, you know, going past that for you know, staff to get all that stuff worked out after we were to approve the option 3.
Right. So if you were to continue this particular hearing to the May 12th Planning Commission meeting, and then you rendered a decision, as we wrote out in the report, is that your decision, whatever it is, could be appealed, and that would then likely put, if it is appealed, a hearing in front of the city council in July at one of their 2 meetings.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, just to just put a nice ribbon on everything. Can I get a final comment and staff recommendation?
Well, Mr. Chair, you may want to close the public testimony portion first before we go into the staff
I
recommendation.
thought we were in deliberation post. Okay. I'd like to go ahead and close the public testimony portion. My apologies. And now I'll ask for final comments from staff and recommendation.
So staff's recommendation is to adopt order 2022-04, which is an order approving the January 14th, 2022 Community Development Director decision on miscellaneous 221-0002.
Well, thank you, Doug. So next up would normally be Planning Commission deliberation, but I think we've pretty much covered our deliberations. So if there's anyone that would like to offer a motion on any of the three options set before us.
Okay, this is Commissioner Capri. I think that I would like to move that we adopt the Planning Commission Order 2022-04. It seems to me that it's going to end up back here anyway. So.
Thank you. And is there a second?
I'll second
I
it.
second it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call vote, please?
So just on a clarification on that is Commissioner Capri made the motion, Commissioner Gray made the second.
Okay.
Commissioner Capri,
Yes.
Commissioner Musil,
Yes.
Commissioner Dale,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gray.
Yes.
Well, on that, the motion passes. Thank you. Okay, so moving on to our next item on agenda. We are looking at, why does it always close my agenda there? So we cleared that out. So now next is new business. And it looks like we have an update of the Newburgh City Planning Commission participation guidelines for consistency with NMC Chapter 2.15 departments of board and commissions.
Thank you.
Is that Doug?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, Doug Rux, Community Development Director. So our city recorder had worked with the city council and there were some modifications that were made to the municipal code. And from those particular changes on our commissions and committees, it requires that we need to update our participation guidelines. So there is somewhat of a mirror to those particular aspects. And so to help you through this evening, I did include a track changes version of the document so that you can see where we were specifically making the changes. So attendance. And I got to get some better light in this office, definitely. So on the attendance side is that if any member fails to attend at least 75% of the regular meetings in any one year, a commissioner would be disqualified from participation. And so this takes some coordination between staff and the sitting chair at that particular point in time, and then some notification back to the city council on that attendance portion. So you're all doing really good. You're attending, and if you're not attending, you are getting a hold of me so that you have an excused absence. Excused absences do not apply to the 75%. So as I mentioned, there's a requirement to report to the chair on any particular given absences. And so we do keep a tally sheet every meeting of attendance, who's here, who's not here. So this evening, Sue Ryan went through and did the roll call. And we had 2 members this evening who were excused because of personal matters. There was also changes to the student commissioner component of that. And so we've identified updating your participation guidelines such that a student commissioner can either be a high school or a college student and is appointed in accordance with NMC 2.15.005 by the city council. It also indicates that the student commissioners serve for a one-year term. And so Aiden is filling that particular position. And of course, it aligns with the school year in large part. So there wasn't a lot of significant change. There was a few minor typo things that I needed to clarify in the document as well, because we don't have a planning director anymore. We have a community development director. So we did not pick that up the last time we did modifications to the participation guidelines, which were clear back in 2016. By your own guidelines, it requires that if there are modifications to the participation guidelines, it has to be done by resolution. So that's why you have a resolution before you this evening to adopt the proposed changes. So I will stop there.
Well, thank you. Okay, seems pretty straightforward. Anybody have any questions? Any commissioners? Hearing none. Can we get a motion?
Commissioner Gray, I motion to accept the resolution for the changes to the participatory record.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can we get a vote, please?
You do not need a roll call.
In that case, everyone in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No opposed. It passes unanimously. So we will move on. Okay. And next on the agenda, we have, why does my agenda close every time I read a link?
It would be items from staff, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, okay. Mr. Rux, items from staff, please.
So you have in your package your forward-looking calendar for activities. Your May 12th meeting, we will be conducting a quasi-judicial public hearing on a project called Crestview Green, which is a planned unit development and conditional use proposal. We will also be holding a legislative hearing on amendments to our development code related to our sign regulations for temporary and portable signs. So always a good reminder, quasi-judicial, remember your ex parte requirements. Legislative, your broader. Special meeting on June 21st. So that's an extra meeting. That will be the night of a city council meeting. So that night, Portland State University students will be presenting information on the car camping program that we have been working on.
Okay.
So that would be a joint presentation to both the Planning Commission and the City Council. So that meeting will start at 6 p.m. And it will be held during the City Council's work session. Your July meeting, we are tentatively looking at amendments and incorporating in elements of our housing needs analysis, our economic opportunities analysis, and our public and semi-public land analysis. We generally have scheduled in August. And this will probably change given staffing. The West End Mill District, which would be a quasi-judicial hearing. Don't have anything calendared at this point in time for your September meeting. As always a reminder, I will not be at your September meeting, but I'm sure there will be something that will come up that staff will bring forward to you. We have some other things out in the future to work on. Substantial completion, which was a new state law provision. We have a policy that's in place with our engineering division to implement that, but we do need to make code changes. And then we have a briefing out in November on the housing production strategy work. There will be some additional items that will get calendared onto your agenda related to our code audit. We are kicking that project off with our consultants. So the code audit is for clear and objective standards for multifamily housing, which is 5 units and above. So we will, after we come up with the final schedule for that, there will be some additional briefings to the Planning Commission, but also remember that there will be some additional meetings for the Planning Commission because you will be functioning as the Citizens Advisory Committee. So where feasible, we will try to bring things onto your regular agenda. Where it's not feasible, then we would use the fourth Thursday of the month, which is always our fallback if we need to provide additional briefings and information to the Planning Commission on that topic. That's what I have, Mr. Chair.
Well, thank you, sir. So I do believe that is the last item on our agenda. So if there's nothing else from commissioners,
Mr. Chair,
would like to make a comment? Go ahead.
I just have something I kind of wanted to bring before the rest of the commissioners, kind of a kernel of an idea, if you will. And I wanted to kind of bring it up with the rest of us before I would make any recommendations towards staff to do anything. Basically, I was thinking along the lines of Commissioner Musil knows this, but the accessory dwelling units and accessory dwelling units specifically for industrial and commercial spaces. So we've had the push with having as an example, properties downtown with a mixed use, such as, commercial businesses on the first floor and, rental properties, apartments, that sort of things as things go up. Well, what if you were to further be able to do that sort of thing on industrial land and, have it specifically for employees is kind of along the lines I was thinking, maybe not necessarily that way, but that would kind of be the gist of it. As in, if you have say a warehouse and you have another floor that you can add to it, or an apartment space type of a thing, and offer that as a benefit to some of your employees that may need that sort of thing. Whereas, with apartment space being tight and this sort of thing, it gives companies a possible advantage that they can offer to their employees, where if other people don't have that, it's a competitive edge. And I talked to Doug a little bit about this, but looking into our current rules, we may be able to do it under current rules. We may need some modification, but until staff takes a good look at that, I wouldn't know that for sure. And so the question I have for the rest of the commission is, do we think that's a good idea? Do we think it's a good use of staff's time to task them with looking into this?
I think that's a brilliant idea.
Thank you.
Here, yeah, I like that. I like the sound of that. It's definitely worth exploring, and especially, talk about a short commute, but
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, that's definitely worth exploring. We'd have to. I don't know. Make sure that it was done in such a way that it wasn't potentially exploitive. Make sure that they're good living condition type units. They're not just,
Right. As Doug said, I really like this term. It's not a barracks.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's definitely worthy of exploration.
And anyone else comment?
Yeah,
I
I think it's
always.
it's got
Sorry.
Oh, I'm done.
Yeah, we
I-
want to live somewhere in between the middle of a studio loft and a Chinese factory barrack.
Or logging town is another one I've thought of as a comparison.
Yeah,
The old company store and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Oh, I think, yeah, I could see something like this going forward. That's a good idea. Done right.
Yeah.
Is that something that we need to formally ask the staff to look into, Doug, or?
Well, I think Commissioner Gray started to make a comment, and then we want to make sure we got Commissioner Hanson comments as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I was just going to say I'm always a fan of mixed commercial residential if it's beneficial to the residents. So yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Commissioner Hanson, any thoughts?
Yeah, in general, I think it's got potential. Obviously, there would be, I guess, I don't know, some concerns. It's interesting, but I think it does have potential if done right.
So I'm hearing consensus to add this to our list of things. So as we were just going through, the forward calendars, that long list of things that are there. Of course, remember that we were trying to recruit for one more vacant position within the department. So we can add it to the list. This evening, I can't give you a time frame. On it, we have our housing planner who's working on a plethora of other housing issues at the moment. And Sam and Ashley are working on a plethora of other things, of other current cases. But we will add it to the list and we'll put it as the top item on that forward-looking calendar list.
Oh, well, I'm honored.
Well, thank you, Doug, and thank you for Commissioner Dale for the suggestion. I think pretty much everybody said, hey, there's a light bulb that went on above Commissioner Dale's head with that one. So, all right, is there any other
I
comments
do.
from staff?
I just have a question, you guys. In my emails from the city, I've got another email that comes from outside the city, but it says, remember to start your mandatory training. Does everyone have those? Or if I responded to this, would I be failing again? Because I think that I failed the privacy.
I did that once too. I clicked on one of those and they said, hey.
So I didn't know that there was a trick. So I don't know what this is. I want to know if this is real.
Does it say newburghoregon.gov on the extension of the email?
It says it's from do not reply at training.knowbefore.com.
You have training. You have training to complete, right?
Yeah, there is training that we have for all of our commission members. Commissioner Capri, if you could forward me that email, I will double check with our IT department to see if it is a legitimate email that's coming from our third-party vendor or not.
Okay. I will. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Well, on that note, I'll go ahead and, someone have something? I heard a voice there. No? Just feedback. Okay. So at this time, I'd like to go ahead and adjourn the April 14th, 2022 meeting of the Newburgh Planning Commission. Thank you all and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.